If you're looking for Miami Dolphins news and rumors, you're in the right place. Mitchell Renz from Chat Sports, ready to break down the latest around the Dolphins in terms of OTA news and rumors to cover. And at the end of today's video, I'm going to give you 5 players that y'all need to keep your eyes on in terms of being a potential post-cut candidate. OTA news and rumors coming at you here on Dolphins Today. I'm going to basically give you my 4 biggest things that I just found a little bit interesting and I think every single Miami Dolphin fan needs to know. First off, 15 players did not go to OTAs, and I need everyone to remember, it is voluntary. You know what that means, right? If you don't, there's this really cool thing out there called Google. You can look it up. Now, what I did want to do is at least show you some of the more notable names in terms of players who did not necessarily attend the OTAs as of it is yet. You have Xavier Howard, who's the top cornerback, joined by Byron Jones, Justin Coleman, who they just brought in from the Detroit Lions, Jason McCourty, Emmanuel Ogbah, which we'll get to a little bit more on him in just a second, Jerome Baker, who they just ended up giving a little bit of a nice deal to, Benardrick McKinney, who they traded for, DJ Fluker, who they just signed, Will Fuller, who they just signed, and then Raekwon Davis. The one player that I want to dive into a little bit further here is a round 1 Emmanuel Ogbah, who is coming off a pretty successful season this past year for Miami, really surprising me and a lot of the staff, and I think a lot of fans out there. The interesting part about this and why I wanted to be able to bring this up is this. He's entering the final year of his contract. So if y'all remember, he signed a 2-year deal. He had his first year last year, and now he's got this year coming up. Hence, final year of the deal. Now, what's interesting is if they decided to move on from him, they could save $7.5 million, and it costs absolutely nothing against their cap. The reason why this is making a lot of news stories is because, let's face it, Ogbah's good, but there's a player that they were bringing in, at least Melvin Ingram, for a visit. So the question that I'm going to ask all of y'all right now, who do you think is the better football player, at least also maybe in terms of overall fit on this defense? If you think it's Melvin Ingram, type MI. If you think it's Emmanuel Ogbah, type EO. I also saw a lot of people out there freaking out like, okay, he's not there, final year of his contract, and they drafted Jalen Phillips in round 1. I'm confident that Ogbah is going to remain a member, though, of this team, and I'm also going to go ahead and type my EO. Let's go to the next story here. It's around Landon Roberts. This is great news to already see something like this. He was a full participant, and sure, it's not like balls to the walls, if you will, in terms of practice, but the fact that he is able to get out there and be a full participant already, that's really good news. So he missed 5 games last season due to a knee, but really the knee injury, at least the one I'm talking about here, it was a wicked one up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Week 16. Dude had to be carted off the field, so anytime you see somebody carted off the field in Week 16, and then they're already being able to participate, and again, like voluntary practices, that's a good thing. Sure, he struggled at times last year, there's no doubt about that, but the fact that they re-signed him to a 2-year deal tells me that they want him to be on the team, and the fact that they did that, I actually like a lot the fact that Roberts is going to be able to tough it out here and really try to have a little bit of a bounce-back year from, last season. So what is your biggest takeaway from OTA so far? I know it just started. I get that, but my job here is to be able to talk to you guys about the latest. So if you see something that I don't have on the show, hey, let me know in the comments. I mean, I know that my job is to cover this team, but there's a lot of shit that happens in the offseason. So basically, 1 or 2 things might slip by. That's very rare around here. But again, comment. What's your biggest takeaway from OTAs so far? The next thing I'm going to get into here is around the quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. And I have really liked what I've heard and what I've seen so far from the quarterback. He had a few quotes that he was basically like, hey, last year, I didn't really know the playbook all that well. I didn't really know a lot of what was going on, and I was a rookie, and he's 100% right. Plus, the hip looks healthy. He was organizing team practices. I like what Tua has done thus far, and it's one of the reasons why I've said, guess what? This man has really grown up. If you guys are diehard Dolphin fans, then you need to hit that big red button underneath this video and subscribe. If you always find yourself looking for the latest news and rumors, we appreciate you. But if you also want extra content, I made this video. It's literally on the channel right now. I tell you, Here's why Tua is going to have a breakout season. I give you MVP odds and really break down why I think your second-year quarterback out of Tuscaloosa could have a big-time year this year for the Dolphins. So again, hit that big red button, subscribe for videos the entire offseason because I don't want you to miss anything. I don't want you to be going to a bar and you meet up with two random guys, let's say their name's Jeremy and Marshall. They sit down and have a beer with you, and they're like, hey, did you hear that the Dolphins traded for Bacardrick McKendry? And you're going to be like, that's not even a real name. And I'm going to be like, exactly, that's not a real name. And if you subscribe to the Dolphin channel, you know who I'm talking about. So hit that big red button and subscribe. The last thing that we're going to break down here on Dolphins today is around some new cut dates. And the reason why this is important is because obviously the entire offseason you're going to have a lot of players that come in and off the roster. It's just simply how it works. But with the new dates out there, I want you to kind of put them in your calendar right now, circle them, and be ready to rock because we're going to be making videos around this stuff. So on August 17th, you go from 90 players to 85. So right now you are allowed to have 90 players on your active roster. But on August 17th, that's got to go down to 85. August 24th, 85 to number 80. And then the real important one, the money bag, the money shot, if you will, August 31st, 80 all the way down to a 53-man. Now, today's show is presented by our good friends Fanatics. If you're looking for a brand new Miami Dolphins hat, we got you covered. Head on over to chatsports.com/Dolphins hats. Now, it's getting hot out there, right? I was actually just in, Sarasota, Florida, and I was sweating my you-know-what off, and there was far too many times where I'm like, why am I even doing my hair? Or even my girlfriend, she'd be like, why did I even curl my hair? You're down there, it gets hot. You know what you need to do sometimes? Just put on a hat, you're ready to rock and roll. Now, I get it. Not everyone that's a Dolphins fan lives in Miami or lives in Florida. But you know what? These hats are pretty awesome, and they're only, some of them, as low as $23.99. Like this hat right here, $23.99. Now, obviously, these deals aren't going to last forever. The hats, not going to last forever. They fit everyone. Head on over to chatsports.com/Dolphins hats. That link is available for y'all in the chat and in the comments. Dolphins June 1st cut candidates coming at you here from Mitchell Renz at Chat Sports. And what I wanted to be able to do on this episode today for all Miami Dolphin fans out there is like look into my crystal ball and try to predict which players could potentially be cut after June 1st. And the reason why this date's important is because when you look at a lot of players' contracts, that June 1st date is a big determinant of like could they be traded or maybe some extra money that a team ultimately saves. The first guy I'm going to bring up here is Allen Hurns, pretty solid wide receiver, but let's face it, Miami did a lot of really good things this offseason, adding extra talent at the position. They went out and signed Will Fuller. No disrespect to Allen Hurns, but come on, let's be real. Will Fuller is a lot better football player than Allen Hurns. There's no doubt about it. Now, he opted out of the 2020 year, which maybe hurt him a little bit in terms of making this roster, but he is also 29 years old. The Dolphins are trying to get younger at that position, and if you cut him, you can save $1.2 million. Sure, it's going to be a dead cap hit of 1.68, but from what I've seen so far, you're seeing a lot of players that opted out last year, and if you're not like an absolute superstar or slam dunk type of player, you see the organizations moving on from them. The next guy I want to bring up is another wide receiver who actually also opted out, Albert Wilson. I kind of wish that he would not have done it. Now, I understand everybody opts out for their own reasons, but Wilson was a player that I personally was really excited to be able to see rock and roll in 2020. But here's the thing. Just like Hurns, they went out and they got Will Fuller, an upgrade. The Miami Dolphins also got an upgrade in Jalen Waddle, who they drafted in round 1. And not to mention Jakeem Grant. Heck, I might even also keep a guy like Jakeem Grant over Wilson. But if cut, it saves you $2.85 million. Sure, you're going to have to eat some money, but if you can move on from Wilson, you move on from Allen Hurns. I mean, I just created about $4 million there. That's important, especially when you're starting to think about some of these players that Miami could sign. Melvin Ingram, Malik Hooker, the list goes on. So what I want you guys to do right now is give me a name, at least a name of a person that you think could be a post-June 1st cut candidate. If you want to be an overachiever and maybe give me some players that you think could be traded, hey, I'll be looking. I'll be down in the comments. Don't let me down. Let's go to the next guy on my list here, another wide receiver. It's Jakeem Grant. You're like, Mitch, you realize they have to keep some receivers. Yes, I do, and they have a lot of talented ones around there. The biggest reason why I'm going to move on from Grant, and it has nothing to do with his skill set, because if you've watched the show for a while, you'll know that I actually like Grant. I think he's a good special teams player. But let's just say, hypothetically speaking, there's a player that Miami, Brian Flores, they really like, they want to be able to bring in. If I'm telling you right now you can save $4.1 million by moving on from probably your, 6th, 7th target on offense, because I'm a believer that Will Fuller, Mike Gesicki, Preston Williams, Devontae Parker, Jalen Waddle, Will Fuller, like all those guys are going to have more targets than Grant. And the fact that I can save all that money on somebody who might not get that much playing time, that's the reason why I have him as a post-June 1st cut candidate. The next player coming up here is Clayton, and I can never get his name right, and it's already escaping me as it stands right now. Fejedelem? No, that's not it. Either way, he's a pretty good safety. Had only 10 tackles last season. But when you really talk about how you could potentially get better, you saw the Dolphins. They went out. They drafted Holland, number 36 overall in round 2 this past season. And I'm like, okay, the fact that they ended up taking Holland as early as they did, the first safety off the board, that to me tells me almost everything I need to know where they think the secondary is going. Now, does he have some special teams use? Yes, absolutely. But kind of the same situation here with Jakeem Grant, where I'm like, you can save $2.53 million. Just because you're a cut candidate, that does not mean I think they're going to get moved on from. But if Miami does get into a situation here where they're trying to pinch some pennies together and they have a player in mind and you think that you could go out and get that guy, this is some of these, cut candidates and where they're ultimately coming in. The next player I want to bring up here is tight end Durham Smythe. Durham Smythe is a fan favorite, and if you're a real Dolphins fan, you'll know that this guy brings actually a good run blocker, if you will, and he can give you a little bit of extra oomph when you need to get a little bit extra oomph when you're trying to run the football. The biggest issue is, I'm reading the tea leaves here for the Dolphins. You have Mike Gesicki. You already extended Adam Shaheen, and then you drafted Hunter Long in round 3, tight end out of Boston College. So let's just say that he's their 4th tight end on the roster right now. I mean, your 4th tight end on the roster making $2.2 million. Again, this is just one of those moves where he's a good player, he's a fan favorite, the guys like him in the locker room, but if I'm running an organization and I can save $2.2 million and I can move on from my 4th string tight end, it's probably the route I'm going to ultimately end up going. So one more time here are my post-June 1st cut candidates. Just because you see a player on this list, that does not mean that they are going to do it. It's just me trying to give you my best analysis and predict if Miami were to move on from, let's say, 5 guys, these would be the 5 guys they would go ahead and do. Head on over again, click the like button, comment who you guys think could be cut by June 1st.